Beautiful. All right. Welcome to another week of our coaching call. This week, Chelsea put together a banger of a topic when she sent me over the show notes on it today. I was very excited because this is a topic that we all kind of believe, but we don't really talk about or verbalize. And that is the perception of professionals and how you look and how that impacts how you are treated, whether it be fairly or not, and how to control that. So we're going to dive into the perception of professionals based on body fat, the subconscious bias. Let's roll. So, Charles, I'm going to let you kick off this first slide while I kick this dog out of my room.
Oh, sorry. Alrighty. So within this slideshow, I know a lot of these are, you guys probably see them and you're like, yeah, I already know. But it is kind of leading up to the main topic of it, which Brad mentioned, was how people perceive you. So obviously here we're talking about the health risk associated with higher body fat. You all know it. You all know that as you gain weight, you're not getting healthier. You're not feeling healthier and you're not moving better. So obviously risk of cardiovascular disease, excess body fat increases your blood pressure, increases your cholesterol, and you're more likely to have plaque buildup in the arteries. Obviously, we know that as you gain weight, you're more prone to get type 2 diabetes, some hormonal imbalances, which causes that like womanly breast tissue to kind of start to build, which a lot of guys are like, I don't know, like I just have chick tits. And it's like, well, it's because you have excess body fat, alrighty? And your estrogen levels are typically higher when you have higher body fat, which causes muscle loss and low libido and decreased energy, which obviously we do not want. Increased inflammation. Typically, as you gain weight, your joints start to just hurt more. And then sleep apnea. I know that some of you struggle with the sleep apnea here. You know, as you get like a fatter neck, right? It puts pressure here. So when you're sleeping, it causes disrupt sleep. And then obviously you have fatigue in the morning, and then of course, cardiovascular problems. So there's many risks for being overweight or having excessive body fat. It's not just the, oh, I've got excessive body fat, my energy isn't so great.
Yeah, there's a entire cascading of effects that happens, and these really compound on one another. For example, Chelsea mentioned sleep apnea and respiratory issues. So sleep apnea, if you're having disrupted sleep, that's going to raise your cortisol levels. You're going to be more stressed out the next day, which is also the downstream effect of that is it disrupts your regulators of hunger. So ghrelin and leptin, you feel hungrier and you crave shittier things. Well, now we're hungrier, we're eating a caloric surplus, and we're eating low quality foods. We're going to have lower energy, even. We're going to have more inflammation. All this stuff compounds. And I want to go back to what you said with increased estrogen levels, how it, I love that you called them chick tits, as Fight Club would say, bitch tits. Muscle loss, low libido, and decreased energy. Steve's like, oh God, what did I get into today? The thing with testosterone, yeah, it helps with muscle, it helps with energy. Obviously, you will burn more body fat. I have been on testosterone replacement for about 2 years. I had brutally low testosterone, and I did what I could to get it back to a point where it was close to normal, but not quite. And the biggest benefit of it and getting my testosterone levels up to a optimal level where they should be, testosterone actually makes you enjoy doing difficult things. It rewires that reward pathway. Testosterone is what helped us build an entire country. It helped us conquer a continent. And I have found that it has made me enjoy work substantially more. It gives me more energy. It allows me to do harder things. If we
Can't hear you.
test.
There you go. Yep.
It makes you want to do these more difficult and challenging things. And when you don't have that, you start living almost as like a shell of a life. Things just aren't as exciting. You just have a lot more like energy for life as a whole. So I always like to harp on testosterone. If you guys haven't had blood work done, I highly recommend it. If you do need a place that does blood work, because a lot of endocrinologists are terrible, I'm happy to refer you somewhere. So moving on, let's go to the next slide here. Healthy body fat ranges. Yes. So body fat's not a bad thing. If we were at 0, you would be dead, just to be clear. And your brain is made of a lot of fat. There's a lot of fat tissue in your brain. So we do need fat for health overall. Now, some ranges that you'll see. So essential fat, 2 to 5%. Like the leanest bodybuilders in the world might get to 5%, might. And like at that point, you look like an anatomy dummy. Athletes, so if you're watching professional sports, you're going to see someone in that 6 to 13% range. Okay. For context, I usually walk around about 15%. So that just gives you like a real world example of what that looks like, which that falls in the fitness category of 14 to 17%. This allows me to have a pretty flexible diet, be active, and also feel good. And then you have like kind of like a healthy range, 18 to 24 is acceptable. Anything above 20, we would ideally be between 10 and 20%, but that is an acceptable range. Once we get to 25 plus, hey, there are a litany of health effects that are negative that just aren't worth it. Okay. So maintaining a body fat percentage in the fitness or acceptable range is really ideal for most people. That 6 to 13 can be fun to do if you're getting ready for summer, but honestly, like that 14 to 24%, like that's a sweet spot to be in. Chelsea, anything to add to that?
Just from my end of things, obviously these percentages don't really apply to me. It's a bit different for women. So dudes, don't take this to your wife and say that she needs to get down to a certain percent, because it is different.
There you go.
But there is like even like the fitness range. For a lot of people, that's not an enjoyable body fat to be in. You will have to be tighter in some ranges. So as we get lower and lower, there are going to be some trade-offs, right? You're not going to be able to drink every single weekend. So the 18 to 24, like Brad said, that's like the health range. But like as we get into summertime, if you're like, I want to be a bit past healthy, I want to be a little bit shredded there, that's when we want to drive into the lower. So being sure that you're like, okay, it's not like I want to be on the high end of the 24. You kind of want to be on the low end, the 18%. I think most of you would more so be happy there. And then just knowing there will be some trade-offs as you get lower and lower.
Yeah, it's referred to as the cost of being lean, the trade-offs that come with it. And what I've noticed, so about 4 years ago, when I really started getting more serious with my nutrition, I was coming off a pretty rough injury history. Both my arms had serious tendon issues going, and I couldn't really train. So I gained a lot of weight, and I think 28% body fat. So then, over the course of next year, my new range became, 20 to 25. The year after that, it became 15 to 20, and then it got 10 to 15. So kind of like the norm will change over time as you get more comfortable in your skill set, as far as like, hey, it doesn't feel like so much work for me to track food anymore. It doesn't feel like work to get steps in. You'll naturally see that kind of decline over time. So if, for example, you're trying to get in that fitness range right now and you're like, fuck, this feels impossible. Like I feel like I'm working all the time to do this. It will feel like that initially. Over time, it kind of becomes the norm of how you operate, and it won't feel so difficult. So if you look at these numbers and you're like, God, I'm like 25% and this feels hard. Yeah, that's going to happen. It won't feel like this forever. So I do like to put that out there, because it can be a little bit demoralizing when you see where you're at, you see where you want to go, and you feel like it's already hard to do this. So it will not be like that forever. Why the hell does lower body fat matter in the first place? Well, it's not just about looking good. It has a direct impact on your health, your energy, your quality of life. We talked about these things a little bit, but improved metabolic health, meaning our metabolism. So if we have more muscle tissue, less body fat, we burn more calories. If you have a lot of body fat on you, think of it like you are a Prius at that point. Your body becomes very efficient at not using energy. And we actually want to be like a dually diesel truck with how many calories we burn. We want to be really inefficient and require a lot of calories to get anything done. So if we reduce body fat, that's a great way to happen for that to happen. If you're walking around with a ton of body fat on you, you probably don't have a very high metabolism, if I had to guess. So that's a huge one, which it's also great for reducing our risk of diabetes and metabolic syndrome. Those two things are extremely prevalent in the world that we have today. And it's really one of the biggest indicators of all-cause mortality. So if we improve our metabolic health, everything kind of cascades from there. Better hormonal balance, yeah, it's going to help you regulate your hormones, and not just testosterone and estrogen, but you have hunger hormones, you have ghrelin, you have leptin. It will regulate those better as well. So if you feel like you always crave like really shitty things, well, over time, as you continually eat healthy, get into a lower body fat percentage, you will not crave those things as much. Your gut microbiome changes as well. Reduce joint strain. So if you were walking around with 200 pounds extra on your back all day, like that would probably be hard on your body. I would not advise anyone to do that workout. But if you're walking around 200 extra pounds of body fat or weight that you don't need, that's essentially what's happening all of the time. So your joints are taking a pounding. The upside of that is dudes that were overweight at one point and lose a bunch of weight generally have the biggest calves I've ever seen. So you do have that going for you, which is very cool. Enhanced physical performance is another one. Lower body fat percentage is, improved endurance, strength, agility, making daily activities and workouts more effective and more enjoyable. It's way more fun to work out when you're in shape because you don't have your stomach getting in your way. Like you can see your muscles through your shirt. Like you can do a pull-up. Everything becomes accessible to you and feels like, oh shit, I can do a lot of fun stuff. And once we start having fun with fitness and activity, rather than making it like a necessary evil, like, oh, I have to do this so I can lose weight, but it just becomes something that's fun, that you can do cool stuff with your body. If you want to hop on like the skis at the lake, it's not a big deal for you to do that. If you want to go hiking 15 miles in a weekend, you can do that. The whole world just kind of opens up to you. So that's a thing that people don't talk about enough. And even Chelsea and myself, like, we just signed up for the Chicago Marathon 3 years ago. Like that's not even a thought for either of us. But now as we, continue pushing adaptation, new possibilities begin opening up to us. And same thing for you guys. So I think that's a really exciting part of this whole process.
Something I want to touch on a little bit, as Brad and I ran more or running more, we've had some clients be like, I kind of want to get into running, but I don't know, like my knees hurt, or I've gained a bunch of weight and all of that. And it's like, so when we look at running in itself, people will say it hurts my knees. It's not that running hurts your knees. It's that your knees are not strong enough to run. And you have not done the things to work up to the running. So will losing body fat help you run? Yes, but also strength training will help you run. So thinking about, just like what you said, having your workouts be more effective, like all of you are strength training, which is great. And that's going to relay more so into the fun things better for you. So if you're strength training plus losing body fat, like you're going to have so much more energy to do the thing and even start to do more things that you never thought were possible, like go in and out of a race car quicker, to go on hikes, to play the things, to be with your kids. I'm going to throw this cat out the window. But like, these are the things that, Brad and I are many, many, many years into doing this. And we're just like, we're still finding things that we're like, oh, like I can do that now. And I feel pretty good doing that.
All right. Now, this is kind of like the topic that we were moving towards. How your body fat percentage influences how you are perceived. This is an uncomfortable truth. When I was a sales coach, we used to have like a kind of an inside joke, but the people that ended up being the best sales reps usually walked around with a shaker bottle of protein. Like if someone came in and they looked like they worked out and they had a shaker bottle, it meant they were like, the first perception is that person is disciplined. Like we know that they have evidence that they can stick to something already, because it's not easy to do that consistently. So research has consistently shown that people form judgments based on physical appearance within seconds of meeting someone. You all have a significant other. Like the first thing you noticed about your like wives was not their personality.
How hot are you, baby? How hot are
Let's
you?
just be clear. Like the personality was a bonus once you went up and you made small talk and all that good stuff. But you looked objectively at this person. And you're like, you're hot. I'm interested. And also, if someone is, attractive to you physically, well, it means that they probably have values that are somewhat in alignment with you. Like they have some form of discipline, consistency. Like you can tell that if someone, puts care into their appearance, they look like a professional. You can tell they take themselves seriously. Now, these biases are not always fair or accurate. I'm not saying, like we should judge people based on how they look, but they can shape how professionals are treated, hired, promoted, or regarded by colleagues, clients, and business partners. Statistically, we see that on average, someone who does fit into that 14 to 24% body fat range over their lifetime earns about 20% more in income on average. So there is a correlation with income and health. And that, again, that is something that people do not discuss enough.
This slide itself, or like the last one, reminded me of Steve was talking about one of the guys that came in to sell him something, I think. And he's like, he's a jack dude, he's a good looking dude. And it's like, this guy could have said the dumbest stuff, but he's a good looking dude, walked in, looks like he works out. So like you already have a positive view of this person just based off of like, you look like you work out. Because that's pretty impressive. Because working out and like making that a habit it's like, whoa, you're doing something good for you.
Exactly.
So, I just thought that was fun that we literally just talked about that.
There's a presence when you walk in somewhere. People are like, oh shit, this guy. Now, how your body fat percentage influences how you are perceived. As we continue on with this, so another study here. So another another study has shown that Obesity Review highlights that there is a stereotype associating higher body weight with negative traits like laziness or self-discipline, poor health. Again, this is a stereotype. It doesn't make it true, but it does make it something that is real that people view. It is why if someone walks into an interview with me and they look sloppy and they have wrinkly clothes and their hair is disheveled, I'm not going to take them serious as a candidate. That's not even a consideration. Same thing with how we carry ourselves. In the Journal of Applied Psychology, it found that employees perceived leaders with higher body fat percentage as lower energy and less authority. So again, just like that commanding presence of being in the room, people view that a specific way. And as we continue on with this, subconsciously, people are judging others on two real main factors, their warmth and like competence. So, how they treat people, how they speak, and body weight can subtly affect these judgments as well. A healthier appearance is associated with self-discipline, determination, proactive attitude. It's funny, we see this on the political spectrum a lot of times. People joke about who are conservative tend to be more fitness related, or people in the fitness industry tend to be more conservative, I should say. And that's because that feeling of, I can figure it out on my own. Like I'll find a way, like I'm not counting on anyone else to help me. So that reads into that bias as well. And those with higher body fat percentage may be perceived as lacking these traits. Again, not necessarily true, but perception is reality.
And I just want to kind of relay this. These are all things that are perceived. Throughout this whole thing, it kind of talks about like, it may not be true, but it's just how she goes. Like, it's just like anything. So you can go on.
Yep. And again, people tend to assume that a person who excels in one area will excel in other areas. Like there's just this bias that like, well, it's why you see professional athletes get coaching jobs. It doesn't mean they're going to be a good coach by any stretch of the imagination, but they're like, hey, you won 6 championships. Let's make Michael Jordan a GM. Like, let's see what happens. He was a terrible GM, but he got the opportunity. That happens across the board. You see it with sales guys that get promoted into roles all the time, like into leadership roles when they're not a good leader, but they were great at sales. Same thing with fitness. If we see someone who's really fit, we're like, they're probably good at other stuff too. Like I'm going to consider that person for a promotion. People who appear physically fit are assumed to have higher energy levels. So expectations around productivity, stamina, the ability to handle stress. If a person looks like they have their shit together, you believe that person can handle a lot. And healthier body composition can counteract stereotypes around age and vitality. So if you are a jacked dude who is 55 years old, people look at you as a 40-year-old. Like you comparatively move down a couple age brackets. And the expectations of you also are aligned with that, which is actually a really positive thing as we age and we're working. We don't want to be the fat old guy behind a desk who everyone's like, oh, this guy who's been around since the beginning of time. We want you to be people who look at as a leader. So again, these things are all perceptions. It doesn't make them right or wrong, but it is reality, guys. And I know for myself, I hold myself to a very high standard of how I look, because I want every advantage with my team. I want to be them to be able to look at me and say, like, that dude has his shit together all the time. It makes me a better leader by doing so. Chelsea, you want to take this slide?
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to wrap everything and just say, like, appearing healthy can build trust. I know it is Brad and I and our team's job to look a certain way, but we don't have to. You know, there's definitely other gyms out there that coaches are X amount of pounds overweight and X amount of body fat. But guess what? They probably get less clients than we do because people want to have someone who looks a certain way in our field and be like, they know what they're doing.
Yep.
Like, that's how I want to look. I want somebody to take care of me like they're taking care of themselves. And I want to be like that. So, you know, it does build a bit of trust. And yet they may perceive a fit, energetic professional as more reliable and capable of handling their needs. When you have somebody who is, you know, X amount of pounds overweight, they just seem, again, they may be perceived as somebody who like, you seem kind of slow and tired and not really on. I want somebody who's on and energetic and just like, yeah, like, let's do it. Like, who has the mental capacity to just like deal with what I'm dealing with right now. And, you know, this will lead you into better client relationships, improve sales, stronger networks, because it puts this vision of, hey, like, I'm healthy and I'm going to like have other healthy people want to work with me. And it just kind of goes back and forth,
Yep.
you know? So it was really, I don't know what the quote is. I was trying to find it, but it was talking about like, you can't drive a Ferrari and have like a terrible, like, you know, the quote, Brad. It's basically just like your body is your,
it is your vehicle. So, you know,
yeah.
there's it's interesting to me when guys will have a car that's, you know, 100, 200 grand. It's this luxury vehicle and it's their way of borrowing status.
Yeah.
And the second they step away from that car, they lose all of that status. When they're with the car, people are like, oh man, like you must be really successful. When you walk away from the car, that disappears. And then some guy that looks like Dwayne The Rock Johnson walks in wearing a suit and you're like, oh fuck, that dude is successful. Like that's what it looks like. So there is something to be said for having that presence. You know, I don't want to over hammer this topic, but I've seen the changes within some of these guys in the group already. You know, Joe, who's down over 100 something pounds and he's lost another like 10, 12 during this process. How he carries himself is different. He said in his check-in today, he's like, I've noticed I'm not walking around with my head down anymore. That's huge because other people perceive that confidence as well. And people that are perceived to be confident get more opportunities thrown at them. So all this stuff ties together. You know, Steve having more energy lately, like that's noticeable. People will notice that, like with his career, people like on his team will notice that as a leader. Like that stuff matters. So all this stuff ties together so well. Once you realize like we're not working out just to get, you know, leaner or fitter, we're doing it for all the positive side effects of change that come with it. That's when this stuff really starts clicking. This is not just about losing some weight so we feel better or we're healthier long term. This improves every aspect of how we show up in the world. So I want to open this up for Q&A, be respectful of everyone's time. Any questions or any thoughts that come up or takeaways from today?
Steve here. Yeah, so I've experienced a lot of this firsthand, you know, being in the contracting business. One day you're, working in the dirtiest space ever, and you go into the gas station and, people don't even, look at you. The next day you'll be, at a business meeting and you're wearing a sports coat and looking sharp and, hey, how are you today? And they greet you, and it's just like night and day. And with me personally through this journey so far, I have a ton of more energy, a lot more focus. And I wanted to start the journey because I have a lot of things that I still want to do in my life. Even though I'm 58, I feel like I want to extend that as much as I can. And I told this story to Brad that I was, trying to get my fat ass out of a kayak on the Chicago River, and just looking at the faces of my kids, like watching me struggle with that. Not to get emotional, but that struck me. And I'm like, I gotta fucking do something. And so I'm doing it. And I'm glad I did. And I'm very grateful for you guys.
Thank you, man. We're incredibly proud of you and grateful to work with you on this process. You're absolutely fucking crushing it, man.
It's kind of funny that Steve said that he started his process because of kayaking, and because I did too. I was kayaking with my wife in Fort Wayne, and like I had to get a huge ass kayak to fit my fat ass at the time. And, I get stuck ever so often on all the rocks. And the world wasn't too terribly high, but it's still like my wife was barely getting stuck, and I'm like stopping all the time, having to do the shuffle. And then we go kayaking this year, and I'm like, I can tell just how much more water I am, how much less water I'm displacing when when I've lost 100 pounds. It's just a whole much better feeling. And like like you said, you carry yourself, and you just, I don't know, your confidence, other people see that confidence and they look at you differently.
Awesome, man. That's killer to hear. And also what I'm hearing from this is I need to start fucking just hanging out at kayak shops all day. Like,
That's what I was
I'm doing all my
thinking.
selling. So thank you for the lead magnet there, guys. I appreciate
I'm like, fuck, we just need to go kayaking with more people.
That's great. Johnny, if you do you have anything to add to this? I don't know if you're in a place where you can talk right now.
No, I think everything that you're saying resonates. I think it's kind of like you said, it's inconvenient truth. I do think that the space that you take up in the room, as far as like the perception of like your habits do show in your physical form. I think that's something that doesn't feel good to hear, but I think that does hold truth for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the first like things. And for me, like when I was out of shape and as a fucking coach, I felt like a fraud. And it was very uncomfortable for me to sit down and really assess and take inventory of where I currently was, because it was really easy for me to tell a story of, I have time, I'll figure it out, blah, blah, blah. But then I noticed I kept telling myself that story. And eventually it has to come to a point where you sit down and almost have this like leveling with yourself of, okay, I accept where I'm at, and I accept this is going to be a process. And I accept that I'm just going to focus on being a little bit better tomorrow. And doing that over and over, it begins to just shift your identity. So I love that all you guys hopped on this call. I am very proud of all of you. And let's continue to fucking crush it. Have a great weekend. I will see you all hopefully over the next few days for most of you guys. Peace.
Yes. All right. Bye.